everyone, my name is Sarah, and today we are going to be reviewing the Millennial Mystic Tarot by the artist Taylor Johnson. I was sent this deck for free to give an honest review of. I'm not required to give a good review. These thoughts are going to be my own, so I thought we should just get into this. I've been super excited ever since I received this deck a week or so ago, and it's finally time. So I'm going to read to you a little bit about the tarot deck off of this card here, and then I'll give you a little more information about this deck. And then we'll get into it. So this is the Millennial Mystic Tarot. This is a deck for everyone, not just millennials. In this deck, you will find depictions of people of varied ages, genders, races, ethnicities, and degrees of physical ability. My intent in creating this deck has always been inspired by the latest generation of rebel saints, holy hellions, and people who radically accept others. I call them the Millennial Mystics, and they inspire me every day. The title of this deck is a nod to them. But you, no matter who you are or what your age or generation may be, this deck is for you. Alright, so that's a really great introduction. I feel like that kind of sets us up for what this deck is about. And if you're interested or wondering, I am technically a millennial, but not really. I was born pretty much right on the cusp. My birthday is 1995, or my birth year rather. And that's kind of right on the edge. Some people say like 95 or 97 or, you know, anywhere in that age is like, or that range is the cutoff. So I'm kind of a millennial, but not really. I think it's called a zillennial. It's kind of a combination of Gen Z and the millennial generation. So before we get into the deck itself, I wanted to do a little looking at the cards, and we will use this example card. So this is the back, and you can see it's done in watercolor, as all of them are. And this card is actually pretty big compared to most other decks. This is the Raven's Prophecy deck by Maggie Stiefvater, and it is, you can see, a bit smaller than that. And these both decks are mass-produced by companies, so you can see sizes vary a little bit, and that's the Wild Unknown by Kim Krans. These are two of my favorite decks. And you can see they're about both the same width but different heights. So this card is a bit bigger. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. I think I'll like it, but I'm not sure. You can see this is pretty thin. You can kind of see the Fool behind it, but we'll get to that. And it's about the same, or a little thicker than this deck, I would say, the Raven's Prophecy. And then this, which was my first tarot deck and has totally spoiled me for thickness of cards. This one, the cardstock is super thick. And this is kind of what I judge everything against, even if that's not fair, because the Wild Unknown deck was super popular, like New York Times bestseller, was in Barnes & Noble, the whole 9 yards. So of course this one can afford to have thicker, you know, cardstock. But the cardstock for this deck is really great. It's definitely thicker than I said than the Raven's Prophecy, and I really like it. I'm not sure how I feel about the size yet, but we'll just have to see. So I'm going to slide this over here a little bit so I can move the cards as things go. I'm going to center it a little bit better because things tend to shift around. And this is a matte finish, if you're wondering. I think that's really everything I want to mention now before we get into it. So we have the Fool. And this was one of the cards I did see beforehand. Most of these I have seen, not all of them. Maybe not even most of them. It just feels like most of them because I've been following this deck since its inception, and I'm really excited to finally have it. But the Fool here is... I feel like this person knows that they're, you know, being kind of looked at, maybe laughed at, because they don't know what they're doing. You see, maybe they fell and bruised themselves. And, I don't know, they're excited, despite the fact that they know they don't really know what they're doing or where they're going. They're excited. And I feel like that's something we need to all embrace more, is the happiness that can come with being the Fool, starting a new journey. And then we have the Magician. And this is, I think, very different from normal depictions, typical depictions of the Magician. This woman is much older than the Magician usually is portrayed to be. The Magician is usually also portrayed to be male, and because of the way our society is run, white. Pretty much every character in traditional tarot decks are white. So that is even on its own a difference, which is not a bad difference. It's great because everyone can do tarot and everyone should be reflected in the tarot decks. So we have this woman here who I feel like they have all the tools they need at their disposal, which is the genuine, or the general, I guess not genuine, the general feeling of the Magician in a tarot deck. But rather than having physical tools, this this woman, this person, this magician has these skills because they've lived through life. They have these tools because they know things because they've lived through life. And that's really interesting. I feel like that will challenge my conception of the magician, and I really appreciate that. I'm always looking for ways to grow with my tarot. And I would like to point out, I think this person is doing Tunisian crochet. I'm not sure. Not 100% sure. Could be wrong, but that's kind of cool. I've never actually done Tunisian crochet myself. And then we have the High Priestess, and this card is really interesting. It's a card that I've been working with a lot, actually. And I feel like this person here is probably just as smart as this person, but they're less likely to, I suppose, you know, go out and do something active. They're more the type to sit back and reflect on something. And one thing I noticed about this card, you have the moon down here for the lunar, more feminine energy, but you also have what looks like the triple moon in this person's headdress, which comes from, I believe, Wicca. I know that's where I see it now associated, but Wicca kind of has a bad habit of taking things that don't belong to them culturally and not giving credit. So I don't know if that's where it comes from originally, but it's a really cool symbol to have because I feel like it matches the more calm, reflecting light of the moon and the energy of the High Priestess, because the High Priestess looks inward often and the moon reflects light. I feel very clever. And then we have the Empress. And this card, I feel like, first of all, it's really pleasing to look at. I just look at it and want to keep looking at it because the colors, I really like them. And then you can see this person has a hand on their stomach. They are pregnant. And that that's a very common Empress symbol, the creator, creating, you know, creation, all those words go together. And I feel like despite this person's fancy clothes, they're the ones who grew the grapes and the pomegranate, and they're the ones who nurtured all that. They're the ones who brought it to fruition. And I think that's really cool. And I like this card because it kind of reminds me of Persephone because of the pomegranate. Then we have the Emperor. I think this was the first card I ever saw Taylor do a speed paint for on their channel for this deck. And this is an interesting Emperor. I don't know. I feel like it's another card that's really going to, challenge my preconceived notions about what the cards mean. And usually I think of someone who's very organized, who has a plan, who is going to march his army into battle with complete precision. But when I look at this person, I don't think organized. I don't think strategic. And that is, maybe because of the way he's dressed, the way he's sitting, the way his hair is kept, his crown's askew. And, that's not necessarily fair. The way a person dresses does not, determine their ability to, be organized, to be strategic. And I feel like this card will remind me there's more to people than what you immediately see. Of course, what you immediately see can be indicative of who they are, but it's not everything. So I think this card will remind me of that, as well as, the Emperor and the card's general meaning. And it's really interesting. It's a very, very strong color palette. Now we have the Hierophant. This is definitely a very interesting construction of the card, layout. It's I would say, a very literal translation of what the word Hierophant means, because it's usually a religious teacher. I don't know. It's interesting. I don't have a whole lot to say about it, just because it's not one of my, favorite cards, and I don't want to wax poetic about it. And then we have number 6, the Lovers. And one thing I noticed about this card right away is the white space. Most of her cards do not have white space. And I feel like that's really powerful here because it just shows these two people who are together. In this case, romantically, they're kissing. But the Lovers is two people on the same page and their energy together. And whereas you have the Hierophant here, you can see the books in the background, that kind of, well, it all does draw focus to him. These things around him also make him the Hierophant, having the knowledge, having the people that follow him. But the Lovers, these two men are together, and that's what the Lovers' energy is. And I really like that. It's a very, very good choice. And I don't know, this card's just kind of pow, It's very strong. And then we have the Chariot. And I'll try and keep this brief just because I know we're probably going to end up with a 40-minute video here, but I like the way this person is struggling to control the unicorns, because usually with a Chariot, it's all very organized and orderly. And when you have the Chariot energy in your own life, that's not really how things go. Things are going to stall. You might have backtracks, setbacks, all that sort of thing because of mental health, just because of life reasons, because of anything. But that doesn't mean you can't recapture this energy. And I really like the way that's portrayed. And then we have Strength, number 8. And this one just kind of takes me immediately to like Tamora Pierce's books. It reminds me of that kind of scrappy character, or even Avatar: The Last Airbender, that kind of like underdog strength that is portrayed in those medias, in those respective books and or TV shows. And I really like that. We have the Hermit. And one thing I noticed about this card, firstly, is how empty everything is, how completely alone this character is. It's just him, the light, and the cigarette. And this light is, you know, it looks like a lamppost, but at the same time it's a lantern, which is a really cool way to integrate the traditional lantern into a more modern setting. And I'm wondering if this was intentional on Taylor's part. I don't generally read the guidebooks before I look at these decks when I do reviews, just because, or flip throughs, because I want to be surprised and I want to give my own thoughts before I start talking about what the author and artist thought of it. I'm wondering if this is maybe a bit of a commentary on addiction, whether it's smoking, alcohol, you know, drugs, or even a really unhealthy relationship with another person, an abusive relationship even, kind of, because even when you're alone, you're not, either because you're addicted to a substance or because this person has so much control over you. Even what you do alone is affected by what they do to you, or the influence they have over you. So I think that's a really interesting interpretation, if that's what they were going for. But that's what I get out of it. But at the same time, there's that loneliness that just kind of, it's another POW card, you know, like the Lovers. It's very arresting, and I feel like it will get me to think more about what Hermit energy means, just because it's so visually striking. So here we have the Wheel, and I think it's interesting. This person has their hand out, like they're kind of controlling the Wheel of Fate or the Wheel of Fortune, which is not something you usually see, usually kind of at the mercy of the wheel spinning itself. But I like the idea that we kind of can determine our own fates, at least to an extent. Of course, you can't determine everything in your life or control everything. That way anxiety and other issues lie. I speak from experience. And it's definitely a very, I don't know, I feel like a lot of these cards are very arresting, and I'm gonna try to not repeat myself constantly, but I like this card as well. And then we have Justice, and this is kind of the card that when I look at it, it's the one that's the most of what I expect when I think of this type of card. It's usually very Egyptian themed, Justice, because of Egyptian mythology and how they, you know, they weighed you in the afterlife to decide whether you know, would go to the good afterlife or the bad afterlife. I don't know the names, I apologize. But I do think it's interesting how this person is a woman of color. Presumably she's Egyptian, or they're Egyptian rather. And usually, like I said before, the people in these decks are white, usually male. There are some women, but not. And I would like to think that the justice this person gives is probably different than the justice a straight white man would give. You know, it's different because your perspectives are different. So here we have the Hangman, which is actually one of my favorite cards out of all the cards that I saw Taylor work on. This is a trans person, either a trans man or a non-binary person who is wearing a binder. That was something they pointed out, and I really like the idea of this person being the Hangman, because the Hangman, if you know the meaning of the card, you might also know the legend that goes behind it, that has inspired it, was Odin hanging from the world's tree to get all the knowledge of the world, or I believe he learned the runes from that, the Nordic runes, and I like the idea of this person, you know, receiving maybe enlightenment because of their transition, or, you know, they've learned their trans, they've realized that they've cracked, so to speak. I think that's more of a trans girl term, but I like the thought of transition bringing enlightenment. You know, they know who they are now, they know themselves better. And I think that's really beautiful, and I really like this card for that reason. You have Death. And then we have Temperance. And I'm not skipping over these because I don't like them. I'm doing this so that our video isn't 40 minutes long. We have Devil, and I feel like that's a really good representation of something controlling you rather than the usual like chains and like BDSM looking setup that usually is shown for the Devil. And of course, it doesn't mean you're literally being controlled by a demon or by the devil, but you're being perhaps controlled by something. Something is pulling the strings that should not be. And it might even be yourself in the case of the Devil. And we have the Tower, which is actually one of my least favorite cards in regards to how it is usually portrayed. But I really do like the blue here and the yellow that contrasts it and the fire. I don't know. It's very visually pleasing, even if I don't really relate to the crumbling tower. I don't know why. I just never have with any of the decks really that I have that show a tower, like a literal tower for the tower. And then we have the Star. And looking at this, I immediately think of a person who's just experienced the violence of the tower. You know, everything's been shifted, but they found their hope. They've, you know, gotten rid of distractions, and they're on their bright path to the future. And everyone around them is too busy being distracted by various things to be able to follow their own hope, which is kind of sad, but perhaps they can find it if they start looking. Have the Moon, and we have the Sun, and this is another one of those POW cards, you know, that you just kind of look at. The Sun is usually associated with the male energy, like the Moon is associated with female, which I think is kind of ridiculous, but we won't get into that. I don't know, this person is radiating the energy that I think of from the Sun, the like life-giving, like it's what keeps this rock alive that we're on, you know, it's what keeps Earth alive. And I don't know, this person is either, you know, doing maybe a spell of some kind, maybe they're a witch, maybe they're meditating, you know, whatever it is, they have power and it is radiating out of them, and it makes me think of the energy of the Sun. We have Judgment. We have the World, which is the last card in the Major Arcana. And here we have this person holding the world, and he's just kind of reflecting on it, thinking about how far he's come since he was the Fool, or in the space of the Fool, I suppose. And I think that's really interesting because I know they say when astronauts go up in space and they look down at the Earth, they're overwhelmed with this sense of we're all on this planet together and you have to take care of it. And that's what the big Earth in the background kind of reminds me of. And I don't know, I really like the energy that this card invokes. So, we're going to go on to the... Interesting. This is number 22. This is an extra card. I did not know this was in here. This is the Void. I like this a lot. I think this might be my favorite card. I cannot wait to read about what the meaning behind this is. It's so pretty. I'm biased. I love space. I love galaxy. I love this aesthetic. But I don't know. I feel like I could fall into this. And maybe that's not necessarily a good thing, but that's really pretty. I'll give a brief description, like an overlay of text to tell you what the meaning of this card is, because I knew there were going to be extra cards, but I kind of forgot, I guess. And I'm excited to find out what this is about. So then we have the Ace of Wands. Again, I really like the... Oh, that's interesting. The color of the label changes. And these aren't all the same in the Minor Arcana, but they're very cold colors, very dark colors. And now we have an orangey red, and I wonder if they'll change with the different suits. We have Two of Wands. Then we have Three of Wands. It's cool. Four of Wands. I really like this one. I don't know, I feel like it relates close enough to the traditional meaning, or not necessarily the traditional meaning, but like the traditional symbolism of the Four of Wands, yet it is very completely different at the same time, and I think that's cool. And then we have the Five of Wands, young strength versus new strength. That's cool. And stalemate. Oops, we skipped a card. There we go. The Six of Wands. Seven of Wands. I like this one. Kind of reminds me of the elite warriors from Black Panther. They fought with staffs. At least some of them fought with staffs. I know some of them. The one had the curved blades, but I don't think Okoye had a staff. But I don't know. That's kind of what it reminds me of. And I like the striking purple. The Ten of Wands. I like that. That's kind of, it's more of, this is my burden to bear and I will do it, rather than, oh my gosh, I've got too much going on. I need to, I need to get rid of it. We have, oh, these are backwards. That's interesting. Yeah, we went from 7 to 10, and we have the Nine of Wands. Sometimes that happens. We have the Eight of Wands, and I really do like this one. I wonder if she's controlling these birds as much as it immediately looks like she is. We have, that's odd. Where's the Nine of Wands? Oh, there we go. Eight of Wands, Nine of Wands. If I pay more attention to the numbers, we wouldn't have this problem. I do like her freckles a lot. Those are cute. We have the Ten of Wands, the Page of Wands. I'm trying to think if it's called anything else usually. I think they're usually called the Page and the Knight, yeah. That's what comes from your first deck being daughter, son, mother, father. It messes up your perception. And we have the Knight of Wands, and this was another one I remember distinctly seeing Taylor ink. It was one of the first ones as well. We have the Queen of Wands. I really like this one. Only partially because I like to sew and I like black cats. We have the King of Wands. This is really interesting. It's not really what I think of when I think of the King of Wands, but I'm always down to have my interpretations challenged. We have the Ace of Cups. That's really pretty. We have the Two of Cups. That's really cute. They're maybe girlfriends, maybe friends, whatever it is they're having. They have that Two of Cups energy together. I really like that. We have the Three of Cups. Not perfect harmony. Then we have the Four of Cups. Looks like trouble in paradise, which is kind of what the Four of Cups represents, because you have the three friends and the two friends before that, that harmony between people, and then you end up with the Four of Cups where things are going wrong, and then Five of Cups where things are really wrong. I really do like the way that Taylor does bruises on her characters. I know that's a really random thing, but the combination of the cross-hatching with the shading to make it look bruised, I find that really effective. We have the Six of Cups. I really like this one. This one's really cool. Going back to your childhood, that innocence. I really like that. We have the Seven of Cups. This one's really pretty too. I like how much is going on, because I feel like this could have very easily become too busy, but I feel like the balance is pulled off really well, and I really like it. And then we have the Eight of Cups. Oh, and these are different colors. Gosh, I should be, not that I'm not paying attention, but I should be paying attention more overall, I suppose. And then we have the Nine of Cups. And the Ten of Cups. That's really adorable. Baby. I love babies. I love kids in general. We have the Page of Cups. I like that. That's a good way to represent it. Have the Knight of Cups. I wonder what that is. If that's perhaps a cigarette, or yeah, I guess it is a cigarette. Yes, it's very interesting. We have the Queen of Cups. I like that nurturer energy. That's really a good way to represent it, and not the way it's always done. And then we have the King of Cups. Hold my coffee. The Ace of Swords. And these are gray. I noticed right away that time. And we have the Two of Swords. I like that. The Three of Swords, that's another good one I like. The Four of Swords, it's really pretty. Oh, they're on the ocean. Their bed's floating away on the ocean. The Five of Swords, I really like that. The Six of Swords. And the Seven of Swords. These are kind of, they get little pockets of air under them and they slide around. Tarot cards always do that when you're trying to keep them organized. Actually, I'm going to do a focus check now that the cards are different heights, like the piles. There we go. The Seven of Swords, the Deception. We have the Eight of Swords. And the Nine of Swords. I like that. That's really, really cool. The Ten of Swords. He knows he messed up. He's willing to fix it, I think, if they're willing to forgive him. And we have the Page of Swords. The Knight of Swords. I like that. That's really cool. And the Queen of Swords, which is trying to run away. It's a really interesting way to interpret the Queen of Swords. I feel like it's almost, they're kind of like leaning into the stereotypical, like, well, everybody expects me to be this icy, stone cold, like, bitch. So I will be, you know. But of course there's more to them. We have the King of Swords. I really like that. That's really, really cool. Looks like he's a good teacher too. All of his students have pretty good grades. And we have the Ace of Pentacles, and this one's green. I like that. The Two of Pentacles, I like that a lot. We have the Three of Pentacles. It's a really good representation of teamwork. We have the Four of Pentacles. Sliding away. The Five of Pentacles. I like that a lot. I like that a lot. Clinging to the star within the bottle. Six of Pentacles. This one's pretty cool too. We have the Seven of Pentacles. I like this one. This is another one I really like. The Eight of Pentacles. The Nine of Pentacles. This is pretty cool. It's another one of those ones that could have very easily become, I'm going to slide this over so it's less in shadow. Could have become crowded and like cluttered, but at the same time it's not. Like, it's very busy, but it's balanced. It works really well. That's a good way to put it. We have the Ten of Pentacles. This is really cool with the like genealogy. And we have the Page of Pentacles. Oh, I like this person. I feel like we'd be friends. We'd get along real well, I think. I like this one a lot. We have the Knight of Pentacles. That horse just looks so fluffy. We have the Queen of Pentacles, who is trying to fly away like all the butterflies. I like that. That's not really, again, what I would have immediately thought for this card, but I like it. And as I've said before, I'm always willing to have my assumptions challenged. And finally, we have the King of Pentacles. He embodies the King of Pentacles. This person definitely does. They just bliss. That's really all I can say. Bliss. So that is the Millennial Mystic Tarot. And before we get into the first shuffle and the first draw, which I always like to do, I want to give you a little more information about this deck. So you can find this deck once it goes live on June 9th at Taylor's Etsy shop, which is Taylor J Art and More. The deck itself will be $40 for the basic, just the deck. And for $45, you will get the deck and a bag, which will be like this. This was the bag I received with the deck. And then for $60, you'll get a deck, a bag, and the print version of the guidebook. No matter like what level you buy, whether it's the 40, the 45, or I think even the 60, you will get a PDF version of the deck guidebook. If you pay another $5, they said, for any version, you can get this card signed. And let me see what else. They said shipping will take about 3 weeks because they get these printed and then they have to quality check them. They go through individually each card to make sure everything's there, everything looks right. They don't want you to get a messed up deck if at all possible. And they are US based and they do ship worldwide, but just keep that in mind. So that is really that. And before we get into the shuffle and the draw, which is what I am excited for because I love shuffling a deck for the first time, I have an extra copy of this deck. Actually, I will be giving away this copy that we just looked through. I have a copy for myself already. So I want to give this copy away to one of you. I will be linking to a giveaway down below. It's not affiliated with YouTube. Taylor didn't suggest this. I'm doing it on my own just because I want to. And with this deck, you will be receiving a bag that I have made because I do a lot of sewing and I made some tarot bags a while back. So you have three choices. You have this skeleton bag. It has this charm on it. I'll put a picture at the end so you can see all three decks. The winner will get to choose which one. I like this one personally for this deck best. I feel like it matches very well. This tie-dyed upcycled bag, and then the drawstring, or not the drawstring, the closure has a flowerish charm on it, more of an abstract. Or this one, which is a constellation map type thing with a dark blue on the inside. And then we have this circular pendant on the closure string. So you will get this deck along with this card, its extra card, and a bag of your choice. So I will link to that. And that is just on me. It's not associated with anything. I just want to give away this deck to someone because I'm very excited and I happen to have an extra copy. So I suppose we are shuffling this copy for the first time. I don't know how well shuffling is gonna work. I will put this back in order when I send it to whoever wins. Alright, I'm just gonna cut it and draw a card. Normally I wait until something falls out, but I think actually this card's calling to me kind of. We've got Hierophant. Make of that what you will. Alright. So thank you all so much for watching. I am very excited to be doing this review of Taylor's deck, not just because I really appreciate and admire their work, but because I really enjoy tarot and I really enjoy independent makers getting to create the things they want to create without feeling bound to the mass-produced way of creating things. Not that there's necessarily anything wrong with that. So I really genuinely do like this deck, and I'm really grateful for Taylor to sending it to me, and yeah, I think that's everything. Look for the link down below if you're interested in entering, and I will put a picture somewhere in here if I haven't already, and I hope you all are having a really splendid day and weekend or morning or whatever time you're watching this. I hope it's a good one. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!